Dad gave the business to my brother-in-law instead of me at his retirement party. Now they're asking me for help after fraud charges. My father retired 2 years ago as the CEO of the lab equipment company he founded. He had assured me for nearly 7 years that I, 30M, would become the next CEO. But on the day of his retirement celebration, he announced that my brother-in-law would be the new CEO. It came as a tremendous surprise to me because I was the one who had planned the party, and I had no idea what was going to happen. I clapped along with everyone else as he delivered the announcement, but then I challenged him. He explained why he let me down. Apparently, my brother-in-law, Zach, 34M, was more of a son to him than I was, as I had disappointed him. Let me tell you that Zach had only been in the business for approximately a year, whereas I had devoted 7 years of my life to it. We had known Zach for a long time, since he and my sister, 33F, had been dating for about 5 years and married for 2. When my father retired, I worked with Zach, and he seemed like a kind guy. Still, I couldn't accept the reality that my father thought Zach was more of a son than I was. When I asked my father to expand on how I had failed him, he answered the most ridiculous thing I could think of, and I lost all respect for him. He explained that it had been a difficult decision, but he had to do what was best for the company. He said that someone as mentally weak as I was could never be a competent leader. That's why he passed me aside in favor of Zach, who he thought had more attributes in common with him. He was alluding to my diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder, which I had mistakenly disclosed to my family a few months before my father retired. One night, while eating dinner with my parents, I accidentally dropped a little container of anti-anxiety medications that had been prescribed to me. I needed to explain everything to them. My mother was cool with it, but my father did not believe in the value of mental health. He thought that being tough was the answer to everything, and when I told him about my nervousness, he began to lose faith in me. I'd like to stress that my anxiety had never harmed the quality of my job, nor had I allowed it to impair my capacity to run the company. I'm sure many people in upper management deal with anxiousness without having it affect their work. But my father told me I had disappointed him by making excuses for my weakness and turning to medications. After much deliberation, he concluded that Zach was the ideal choice to take over the company instead of me. He told me I could quit if I wanted, but he didn't trust me to manage the company the way he did. He refused to give me the reins since I had demonstrated that I was not strong. It wasn't only what he said, it was also that he had encouraged me to assume I would be the next CEO, despite the fact that he had made his decision well before the retirement party. It was quite hurtful. That night, I left the celebration early and never spoke with my father again because he had deeply injured me. At the end of the day, it was his company, and he could hire anybody he believed was the greatest fit. If he felt that my nervousness would get in the way, I had to respect his decision. However, I didn't have to put up with that type of rudeness. So I decided to resign, and within a few weeks I began working elsewhere. My mother was the only family member I kept in touch with. When my sister learned that I was retiring because I was furious that my father had appointed Zach as CEO instead of me, she interpreted it as a personal attack. Instead of attempting to understand where I was coming from, she contacted me to defend my father, and we got into a fight. After that, we stopped speaking. I haven't spoken to my father or sister in 2 years, and I haven't had any touch with Zach. I occasionally speak with my mother to see how she's doing. We try to meet at least once a month, and each time we do, she attempts to persuade me to make amends with my father. But I'm simply not interested. My mother contacted me about a week ago, quite frantic. She informed me that Zach had been arrested for fraudulent actions, notably tax fraud. My father was also under scrutiny because of his former affiliation with the corporation. That upset me, but I had no idea what she expected me to do. She wanted me to speak with my father, smooth things out, and testify for him in court if required, because I had previously worked for the company. I was very clear with my mother that I was not going to get engaged in any way. I was confident that if my father was being examined, all of the company's upper management would be scrutinized as well. If Zach had committed fraud, it was a severe allegation, and I did not want to go into the specifics. All I knew was that the farther I got away from this disaster, the better off I would be. So I made it obvious to my mother that I was not going to stick my neck out for my father. They'd have to deal with it on their own because I didn't want any problems. Besides, if my father genuinely wanted my assistance, he should have approached me directly. He's the one who needs me, so why should I be the one to contact him first? My mother then told me that I was being childish and petty, and that I needed to speak with my father and clear the air since the family needed to keep together during this tough time. I felt she was being ridiculous, so I told her my decision was definite. I was not going to reach out to my father at any cost. She became enraged and accused me of being selfish and uncaring because, even though the family was going through a lot, all I cared about was what happened 2 years before. I thought it was very insensitive of her to say so. If she had been in my situation, she would have felt as betrayed as I did, and she would not have been able to move on as soon. She would not have forgiven my father if she had been passed up for a position for which she had worked hard for nearly 7 years due to circumstances beyond her control. It's unreasonable to ask me to forgive him, especially because my father has never even tried to apologize for what he did to me. I don't think anyone can forgive someone who doesn't apologize in the first place. So my mother and I argued for a time. Eventually, I informed her that this was definitely karma for screwing me over, and that whatever was going on with Zach and my father right now, they deserved it. My mother went silent and eventually hung up. I felt horrible for saying that, so I planned to call her back a few hours later. But then I discovered she'd blocked me. I now feel extremely bad about what I said. Am I an asshole for claiming that my father was definitely suffering retribution for passing me over for the CEO position? Update 1. Hello everybody. My mother blocked me 1 week ago, and I still haven't been able to contact her. I'm trying not to feel guilty about it, but there's really not much I can do. She was the only person who kept in touch with me during the last 2 years, and without her, I feel completely lost and alone. Of course, I have my friends to rely on, and they have all been there for me. But my mother was the one person in my family that looked out for me, and I no longer had her. It's difficult coming to terms with this, and I truly want to contact her. However, I still believe that I have done nothing wrong. I don't think I said anything out of line, and I believe this is karma for booting me out of the firm for something I had no influence over. Yes, I have an anxiety issue, but as I previously stated, it is not crushing. It has no bearing on my leadership skills or ability to work as well as everyone else. It did not make me a disappointment, as my father said. Whether people like it or not, words have meaning. What my father told me on the night of his retirement party has stayed with me for the past 2 years. His unsophisticated approach about mental health and its relevance severely harmed my self-esteem for several months. I continued doubting myself and questioning every decision I had made up to that moment. I felt like an imposter in my new work. It took a long time to get over that, and I'm still in treatment dealing with unresolved issues. However, my anxiousness has never impaired my capacity to work. In fact, I am one of the greatest employees at my current job, as my managers often tell me. They're even going to promote me soon. I genuinely believe my father made a significant mistake, and it is not my responsibility if my mother does not recognize this. It just sucks that she's choosing to side with him instead of telling him to fuck up and apologize to me. I don't understand why she believes I should make amends first. One thing is certain, I won't do anything for the family until they apologize for everything. And they must say it with sincerity. I refuse to be used again for selfish gain. Update 2. My sister stopped by to see me today, and it was stressful since she was emotional. She wants me to help her because her husband is in serious jeopardy, but I'm not sure what they expect me to do. My hands are tied here. This is a federal felony, and I don't think I can help them. She appeared to be in a bad situation, so I let her in. I tried to be as kind to her as possible because I am not a heartless person. I can't just slam the door when someone is in so much pain. She started crying on my shoulder, telling me she had no idea what was going on, and that if she had known, she would have stopped it right away. She's quite concerned about what will happen to him, and she wants me to use my connections to help him out. I informed her that, unfortunately, I do not have any such ties that would be relevant here. Then she stated that our father had told us that one of my employers at the company where I presently work is married to a federal judge, and they were hoping I could speak with him and help them. She even suggested that they were willing to pay whatever it needed, but they simply wanted me to put them in touch with my employer and, by extension, his wife. I thought it was rather out of line for her to ask, let alone expect me to do it. I immediately answered no, telling her that I would prefer it if she left me alone. I assumed she had come for emotional support, but this was not something I was going to promote or even discuss. I had several reasons for saying no, the primary one being that I did not want to bring this up with my supervisors and link myself with a family of fraudsters. More significantly, I follow a personal code of morality and ethics. While I don't want anything bad to happen to my sister, if Zach had committed tax fraud, I didn't want to get involved in a situation where I was attempting to aid him or influence the issue in his favor. At this time, it wasn't personal against him. I simply didn't want to become engaged. The most I could give them was emotional support, but for me to go to such lengths was ridiculous. When I said no and asked her to leave, my sister sulked and said she couldn't believe I was still angry at her husband for something that wasn't even his fault. I attempted to clarify that this was not about that. In fact, I had never truly blamed him for what happened to my father. My father decided to give him the position instead of me and allow him to take over the company. If I were in his shoes, I would probably have accepted the post without considering who genuinely deserved it. Maybe I despised him slightly, but I didn't bear a grudge. He just wasn't important enough for that. I tried to inform my sister, but she refused to listen, insisting that our mother had been correct. There was no sense in talking to me because I was still petty and selfish. We ended up fighting again, and I told her to leave my home. She couldn't just walk in and disrespect me after everything had happened, especially after I tried to console her, even if she never showed me the same courtesy when I was going through a difficult period. In fact, she argued with me back then because she saw it as a personal attack. She continued to do the same thing 2 years later. So if anyone was acting petty and selfishly, it was my family. Her remark about our mother being correct made me feel bad because, for the past 2 years, my mother had been the only person there for me. Now it felt as if she hadn't been there for me at all, and everything was all for show. I was already deeply offended and my sister refused to leave. She remained standing there, uttering one nasty thing after another. It soon got to the point where both of us were yelling so loudly at each other that I couldn't hear what she was saying. We ended up yelling at each other before she finally left. I feel terrible about everything that is going on, but at the same time, I believe they deserve what is coming to them. I believe they deserve every negative thing that happens to them. I honestly believe that maintaining in touch with my mother during the last 2 years was a major mistake, and that I should have broken off my entire family when I had the opportunity. Even now, I regret wanting to be there for my sister when she was behaving crazy. They are clearly no longer deserving of my time or attention, as evidenced by their repeated demonstrations. But for some reason, I find it really difficult to completely remove them from my life totally. I keep thinking about our youth, how close we were, and it pains me to talk about it today. All of this is absolutely terrible. I wish it was all over soon. Update 3. It's been 4 days since my sister visited and we got into that argument. No one spoke to me for the following 4 days. I nearly thought they were going to leave me alone now. But today, my parents arrived, and this time I was determined not to let them in. I had already made the mistake of letting my sister in the previous time, and we all know how that went. I wasn't about to repeat my mistake. They were standing outside the door, and I ordered them to leave since I didn't think there was anything more to talk about. They couldn't possibly have anything new to say that hadn't previously been stated, so we could save each other's time and leave it at that. But my father stated he wasn't coming to ask for help. He truly came to apologize. He explained to me that after a long time, he understood he had done the wrong thing. He said that he had made the biggest mistake imaginable and that nothing he said would make it right. But the least he could do was talk to me and apologize for everything. I have to tell you, that actually surprised me since I was expecting him to walk up and start yelling at me or something. We hadn't spoken since the night of his retirement party, and I still remember him calling me a disappointment. I doubt I'll ever forget that. It was all I could think about while he apologized. When he was finished, I told him I was grateful that he had come all the way here to apologize, but it was difficult for me to forgive him. He couldn't just apologize and expect everything to be good, especially after 2 years of no communication and no effort on his part to contact me. I told him I needed time, and even then, I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to forgive him. It wasn't even the fact that he had screwed me over 2 years ago that worried me today, but rather the fact that it took him 2 years and so much hardship to realize he had done the wrong thing and eventually come and talk to me. That's what made me so sad. Even after that, I was expecting him to get angry and start yelling, but he simply stated that he was willing to wait for me to come around. He stated he'd be fine with it even if I never spoke to him again or forgive him. He admits that 2 years ago he made a poor decision. He didn't take my mental health lightly. He simply went too far. He added that in his family, all guys were raised to be rough. They thought that getting through life meant struggling through everything. Anyone who claimed to be anxious or depressed was perceived as weak and making excuses for oneself. When he learned I was using anti-anxiety medication, he began to doubt my ability to lead the company. He had started the business from beginning and couldn't afford to let it fail. His dread and paranoia got the best of him, and he made the worst option possible, which led to our current position. After we stopped talking, he revealed he was angry at me and had resented me for a few months. But then he started second-guessing himself, researching more about anxiety and its mechanisms. A few months ago, he began to suspect that he could be experiencing some symptoms and intended to contact me to resolve the situation. However, the entire episode with Zach came to light, and he was unable to do so. When my father finished describing everything, I felt weird about the scenario. I'm still not sure how I feel about it all, but at least he apologized. It may seem insignificant after 2 years, but it means a great deal to me. I don't know if I'll forgive him anytime soon, and I'm not sure if his apology was real, but I'm prepared to think about it and give it a try. For the time being, I told him to go home and that I would call him if I felt the need. He acknowledged that and departed. My mom and I didn't get to communicate much today. At first, she apologized to me, as did my father. Toward the end of our conversation, she expressed her willingness to wait for my forgiveness. She recognized that she had reacted too fast and rudely, rather than attempting to comprehend what I was going through. She also indicated that she had spoken with my sister, who wanted to repent for previously mistreating me. However, I don't consider that a true apology. My sister is an adult who can speak for herself. If she wants to apologize, she'll have to do so herself. I understand she is struggling with everything Zach related right now, but there is no justification for how she behaved the last time she visited. Anyway, most of my family members have apologized to me, and it is now up to me to determine whether or not to accept their apologies. I won't lie, it will be a difficult decision to make. I've gone 2 years without speaking to any of these individuals, with the exception of my mother, and even she's having some difficulties right now. On the one hand, I want to forgive everyone and move on with my life since I don't believe animosity would help me go on. If I don't forgive them, these ideas will continue to haunt me, as they have for the past few years, and I don't want that. On the other hand, I'm not sure if forgiving them and leaving things in the past is the proper thing to do. I'm just perplexed on what to do right now. If I'm honest, I miss my family tremendously, and everything is messing with my mind. I understand that some of you may believe they are only doing this because they are in problems right now, but I've already stated unequivocally that I cannot help them. Even if I could, I wouldn't. It's a matter of principle for me, and I'm not about to change it for anyone. So if they are hoping for my assistance, they have already set themselves up for disappointment. However, if that is not on their thoughts and they are truly attempting to repent and restore our broken connections, it complicates matters even further. I guess I'll sleep on it for a few days and consider what I want to do. I'll keep you all updated. Update 4. Hello everyone, it has been 4 months since I last checked in here. I got incredibly busy in the meantime, which I'll explain later. Anyway, in my last report I said that my dad and sister both apologized to me. My parents did this in person, but my sister, who was preoccupied with Zach's condition, asked my mother to apologize on her behalf. A few weeks later, my sister came to see me in person and apologized. I told her the same thing I told my parents. I'd think about it and let her know. I thought about it. I took my time, and last month I informed them I wanted to restore our friendship, but at my own pace. I said I'd be willing to eat dinner with them once a month and see where it goes because I'm still unsure whether mending our friendship is a good idea. They were ecstatic and stated it was fine as long as I was happy. So that is where we are currently. We ate supper together a few weeks ago. It was embarrassing enough, but I could see they were genuinely attempting to make amends for the past by being especially friendly to me. Zach was not at the dinner because my sister filed for divorce 2 months ago and he had already been dismissed from his job. My father offered to make me the CEO, but I declined. I suppose I need more time. My father is currently handling things at the company, and he is still waiting for a response from me. I will think about it for a few more months and make a decision later, but I may accept. For the time being, I'm simply trying to focus on what I enjoy doing, which includes spending time with my girlfriend. She's an old acquaintance of mine, and we began dating a few months ago. That's what's kept me so busy lately. My life now includes more than just job and family problems. In reality, she was the one who persuaded me to forgive my family and give them another chance. I'm so glad we're together. I had liked her for a long time but had never asked her out since I did not want to jeopardize our friendship. I am delighted she took the first step. Now that we're together, and I'm as happy as I can be, things are looking up for me. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.